On the third wedding anniversary, the gift Jason gave me was a divorce agreement and a woman. Celia, sign it. He slammed the document on the dining table, the black and white words stinging my eyes painfully. This is Vivian, my colleague. From now on, she will replace you and take better care of me. Vivian stood behind him, with a slightly protruding belly, wearing a victor's smile on her face, mixed with a touch of perfectly timed timidity. Sister-in-law, don't blame brother Jason. It's all my fault. But the child is innocent. I didn't look at her, just stared at Jason. He thought I would cry, make a scene, and question him like a shrew. After all, for him, I gave up an offer from a prestigious overseas university, squeezed with him in a 30-square-meter rental room, accompanying him from having nothing to becoming the company boss he is today. But I just smiled. I slowly picked up the agreement, gently blowing off the non-existent dust on it. Jason, are you sure you've thought this through? My patience is limited. He frowned in disgust. Fine, I pushed the agreement back, enunciating each word clearly, the property, the company, the child, I want it all. You, leave with nothing. Jason seemed to have heard the biggest joke in the world. He sneered, reached out and tapped my forehead, the action devoid of any affection, leaving only insult. Celia, have you woken up? Have you forgotten whose company this is? Which of those properties under your name wasn't bought with my money? Even the crappy car you drive is one I discarded. The contempt and disdain in his tone were like countless fine needles piercing into my skin. You're just a housewife, haven't worked a single day in these years, what do you have to compete with me? Vivian behind him timely covered her mouth, looking incredulous. Oh my God, sister-in-law, so you've never worked? Brother Jason has protected you too well. She turned to Jason, her eyes full of admiration and heartache. Brother Jason, supporting the family alone must be so hard. From now on, I'll strive with you. Singing in harmony, they truly were a match made in heaven. I picked up the red wine in front of me and gently swirled it. The wine-red liquid hung beautiful arcs on the glass wall, reflecting my calm and unruffled face. Jason, I'll ask you one last time, have you really thought this through? Why so much nonsense? He was completely impatient. Celia, I brought Vivian here today to notify you, not to discuss with you. You have to sign this, whether you want to or not. He thought he had complete control over me. He thought that if I left him, I would have nothing and couldn't survive. He forgot. Or rather, he never knew who the housewife in his eyes really was. Fine. I put down the wine glass, the bottom colliding with the table, making a crisp sound. In this tense atmosphere, it seemed particularly abrupt. Jason and Vivian were both stunned. I stood up, looking down at them from above. Since you're so eager to be a father to someone else's child, I'll fulfill your wish. I picked up my phone and dialed a number I hadn't used in a long time. The call was answered almost instantly. Brother. A steady voice with a hint of laziness came from the other end. Celia? Why did you think to call me? Did that Jason bully you again? My brother, the true head of our family, the president of the Sue Group, Adrian. Back then, for the sake of so-called love, I insisted on marrying the penniless Jason, which angered him to the point of almost severing ties with me. Over these 3 years, I reported only good news and not the bad, hardly ever contacting him proactively. Brother, I'm preparing to divorce. My voice was calm, without a trace of fluctuation. The other end fell silent. After a long while, Adrian's voice sounded again, carrying suppressed anger and a hint of imperceptible satisfaction. You figured it out? Yes. Send me the address, I'll have attorney Marcus go over. Okay. After hanging up, I waved my phone screen in front of Jason. My lawyer will contact you. Before you receive the notice, I advise you to behave yourself. Jason's face changed several times. He obviously didn't expect that not only did I not cry or make a scene, but I also found a lawyer so quickly. This was beyond his control. Celia, do you think finding any lawyer can scare me? I'm telling you, it's useless. This company, these assets, you won't get a single penny. He roared sternly but inwardly weak, trying to regain some face. I couldn't be bothered to waste more words with him. We'll see. After saying that, I picked up my coat and bag, walking straight to the door. As I passed Vivian, I stopped. She subconsciously stepped back, protecting her belly, looking at me with eyes full of vigilance. I smiled, leaned close to her ear, and said in a voice only we two could hear, "If you want to rise in status through your child, it depends on whether you have that fate. Be sure to protect your belly well." Vivian's face instantly turned pale. I no longer looked at her, pulled open the door, and left gracefully. Walking out of the restaurant, the evening breeze blew on my face, carrying a hint of coolness. I took a deep breath, and the pent-up frustration in my chest seemed to dissipate a lot. 3 years of marriage, a joke. It's good this way. It's time to take back everything that belongs to me. I drove back to our home with Jason, a large flat in a high-end downtown community. Every part here was personally arranged by me. Now, it just seems ironic. Without any nostalgia, I walked straight into the walk-in closet and took out the suitcase I had prepared long ago. Some everyday clothes, a few valuable pieces of jewelry, and a file bag hidden in a secret compartment. After doing all this, I pulled the suitcase, took one last look at this so-called home, and turned to leave. Downstairs, a black Bentley had been waiting for a long time. The driver respectfully opened the car door for me. "Miss, the master sent me to pick you up." Back to the old residence. The car smoothly drove into the night. I leaned back in the comfortable seat, watching the street scenes rapidly receding outside the window, my heart completely calm. "Jason, our game has just begun." On the other side, in the restaurant. Jason watched my resolute departing figure, an inexplicable unease rising in his heart. Celia's reaction was too abnormal. No hysteria, no sobbing, calm to the point of being terrifying. "Brother Jason, sister-in-law, she won't do anything drastic, right?" Vivian timidly tugged at his sleeve. "Her?" Jason sneered, "That kind of woman cherishes her life the most, how could she do anything drastic?" Though he said that, the unease grew stronger. He took out his phone, wanting to check the bank card balance, but found the app wouldn't log in no matter what. "System maintenance, please try again later." He tried several times in a row, all with the same result. An ominous premonition enveloped his heart. He immediately called the bank's client manager. "Manager Wang, is there something wrong with my card? Why can't I log in?" Manager Wang on the other end was very polite but also carried a hint of detachment. "Mr. Jason, hello. Your account has been temporarily frozen due to an abnormal change involving a large asset. You and your wife, Ms. Celia, need to come to the counter together to handle the unfreezing procedure." "What? Frozen? Abnormal change?" Jason's brain buzzed. All assets under his name, including the company accounts, used this main card. Now frozen, it meant he instantly became a penniless pauper. "Yes, Mr. Jason. This is the bank's risk control mechanism to ensure the safety of your funds." "My wife? On what grounds? That's all my money." Jason almost roared. "Sorry, Mr. Jason. Because this card is a joint family account with Ms. Celia, so." Jason couldn't hear the rest of Manager Wang's words. He only knew that Celia, that woman, had frozen all his assets less than an hour after he proposed divorce. What a move to pull the rug out from under him. He had always thought Celia was a docile sheep, but unexpectedly, she was a vicious wolf that had long bared its fangs at him. Jason hung up the phone in a rage, his face ashen. He stared fixedly at the divorce agreement on the table, as if trying to burn 2 holes through it. "Brother Jason, what's wrong? Did something happen at the company?" Vivian asked cautiously. She could feel the terrifying anger emanating from Jason. "That bitch." Jason slammed his fist on the table, causing the cups and plates to make a piercing clatter. "She froze all my accounts." Vivian was shocked. "How could this happen?" How did she do it?" In her perception, Celia was just a non-productive housewife completely dependent on Jason. How could she have such capability? How would I know? Jason irritably scratched his hair. I really underestimated her. This scheming woman is playing this trick on me. He thought he was in control of everything, but he didn't realize that he had been manipulated by Celia from the very beginning. That so-called joint family account was something he had voluntarily set up to show off his generosity and his affection for Celia. At the time, he was smugly thinking that since Celia was so clueless, even if the money was in a joint account, he would still be the one in charge. Now thinking back, this was simply lifting a rock only to drop it on his own feet. Then, what do we do now? Vivian panicked. Will the company be affected? Nonsense. Jason glared at her fiercely. There's a payment due tomorrow, with the account frozen, what do I pay with? If the company's capital chain breaks, it's all over. He had struggled for so many years, finally achieving what he has today. He absolutely couldn't let all this be ruined by Celia. No, I must find her. Jason picked up his coat and was about to rush out. Brother Jason, where are you going to find her? Vivian held him back. You don't even know where she went. Jason's steps halted. Yes, he didn't know where Celia had gone. In 3 years of marriage, he had never cared about Celia's family and friends. He only knew she had a brother, but didn't even know his name. In his world, Celia was just an accessory, a convenient nanny, a beautiful wife to show off in front of others. He had never truly understood her. At this moment, for the first time, a strong sense of powerlessness surged in Jason's heart. He realized that his understanding of Celia was pitifully scarce. Brother Jason, don't worry. Vivian's eyes turned, an idea coming to mind. Sister-in-law must be angry for the moment, wanting to scare you. She loves you so much, how could she really bear to leave you with nothing? Apologize to her properly, say some soft words, and she'll definitely soften. Jason frowned, somewhat hesitant. Him apologizing to Celia? How could that be? He was the master of this relationship. Besides, Vivian continued to persuade, the most important thing now is to stabilize the company. As long as the company is still in your hands, even if you really have to give her some property, you can quickly make a comeback. But if the company is gone, then there's really nothing left. Vivian's words hit Jason right in the heart. Yes, as long as the Green Hills remain, there's no fear of lacking firewood. As long as the company was still there, he had the capital to turn things around. As for Celia, once he got through this crisis, he had plenty of ways to deal with her. Thinking of this, Jason's expression softened a bit. He took out his phone, found Celia's number, took a deep breath, and dialed. The phone rang for a long time, and just when he thought Celia wouldn't answer, it was finally picked up. Celia, what exactly do you want? As soon as the call connected, Jason couldn't help but question. However, what came from the other end was a strange male voice. Hello, Mr. Jason. I am Ms. Celia's proxy lawyer, my surname is Zhang. Regarding your divorce with Ms. Celia and the property division issues, I will be fully responsible. Ms. Celia herself will not have any direct contact with you anymore. Jason's brain went blank again. A lawyer? So fast? What kind of person did that woman Celia find? I don't care what lawyer you are. Let Celia answer the phone. This is between us husband and wife, no need for outsiders to interfere. Sorry, Mr. Jason. Attorney Marcus's voice was still unhurried, but carried an undeniable authority. From the moment Miss Celia entrusted me, this is no longer your family matter, but a legal case that needs to be handled seriously. Additionally, I formally notify you. Tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock, please come to my law firm with your lawyer. The address will be sent to your phone shortly. If you don't come, we will take further legal measures. After saying that, the other party hung up cleanly. Jason listened to the busy tone on the phone, so angry he almost smashed it. Legal measures? She dares to threaten him? Good, very good. Jason laughed in extreme anger. I'd like to see what tricks you, Celia, can play. The next morning at 9 o'clock. Jason arrived on time at attorney Marcus's law firm with his company's legal advisor. This was a law firm located in a top office building in the city center, the location alone sufficient to demonstrate its strength. Jason's heart sank involuntarily. He and his lawyer were led to a spacious conference room. Attorney Marcus was already waiting inside. He looked to be in his 40s, wearing a well-tailored suit, with an elegant temperament, but the eyes behind the lenses revealed shrewdness and sharpness. Celia didn't come. A flash of disappointment and annoyance passed through Jason's heart. Mr. Jason, please sit. Attorney Marcus pointed to the opposite seat. Jason pulled out the chair and sat down, getting straight to the point. Attorney Marcus, let's not beat around the bush. What exactly does Celia want? How much money? Name your price. In his view, Celia making such a fuss was nothing more than wanting more money. Attorney Marcus smiled and pushed a document in front of him. Mr. Jason is straightforward, so I won't beat around the bush either. This is the property division plan we have drafted based on relevant laws and your prenuptial agreement with Ms. Celia. You can take a look first. Prenuptial agreement? Jason was stunned. He remembered that before marriage, Celia did have him sign something. At the time, he didn't look carefully, thinking it was just a girl's lack of security, a set of formalism. He signed casually and had long forgotten about it. Unexpectedly, that was a prenuptial agreement. With trembling hands, he flipped open the document. When he saw the terms clearly, his face instantly drained of color. The content of the agreement was simple and brutal to an outrageous degree. It clearly stated that after marriage, all income, investment returns, and company equity obtained in Jason's personal name belonged to his personal property. And all assets under Celia's name, including premarital property and any gifts received after marriage, also belonged to her personally. The most crucial was the last clause. As compensation for Celia giving up her career and returning to the family, Jason voluntarily gifted the property they jointly resided in after marriage, as well as 50% of the company equity under his personal name, to Celia, as an irrevocable permanent gift. This agreement was simply a deed of sale. This is impossible. This is fake. I never signed such a thing. Jason stood up excitedly, pointing at the signature on the document, his hands shaking. Mr. Jason, please calm down. Attorney Marcus looked at him calmly. This agreement is in triplicate, notarized by the most authoritative notary office, and has full legal effect. Every word and every signature on it is authentic and valid. He paused and added, if you have doubts about the authenticity of the signature, we can completely do a handwriting appraisal. Jason of course knew the signature was real. He just couldn't accept that he had personally signed such an agreement that pushed him into the abyss. What was he thinking at the time? Oh, he remembered. That day, Celia brought him this document, her eyes red, saying her family didn't agree to her marrying him, thinking he had no money or power and couldn't provide her security. She said that as long as he signed this agreement, she would have the confidence to fight with her family, and she could marry him without hesitation. At the time, he was blinded by so-called love, and feeling that Celia's family was looking down on him, a surge of pride came over him, and he signed without thinking. He even thought this was his responsibility and promise as a man. Now thinking back, he was simply the number one fool under heaven. He had been played by that woman Celia from beginning to end. Mr. Jason, if you have no objections, let's discuss the specific division plan. Attorney Marcus's voice pulled Jason back from his collapsing thoughts. According to the agreement, the property located in the city center's Yunding mansion, as well as the 50% equity you hold in Tingfei Technology, will all belong to Ms. Celia. Additionally, Attorney Marcus took out another document. This is 3 loans provided to you in personal name by Ms. Celia's family at the beginning of your company's establishment, totaling 5 million yuan. The loan contract specifies an annual interest rate of 10%, to be repaid in full with interest within 5 years. 3 years have passed now, and with principal and interest, You need to repay a total of 6,500,000 yuan. What? Loans? Jason was completely dumbfounded. Wasn't that 5 million Celia's dowry from her family? He had always thought it was compensation from her family who looked down on him, given to their daughter. He used that money as startup capital to have today's Tingfei technology. Now, this money had turned into loans? With interest? This is impossible. Absolutely impossible. Celia clearly said back then that this was her parents giving her dowry. His words were interrupted by Attorney Marcus before he finished. Mr. Jason, please watch your language. It's in black and white, the loan contract is here, with your personal signature on it. If you don't acknowledge it, we can only see you in court. Attorney Marcus pushed over that loan contract as well. Looking at his own flamboyant signature on it, Jason felt the world spinning. He was done for. Completely done for. If divided according to this plan, he would not only lose half the company equity, lose the house, but also bear a huge debt of 6,500,000. He would return to square one overnight, even worse than before. No. I don't agree. I absolutely don't agree. Jason, like a trapped beast, let out a desperate roar. I want to see Celia. I want to ask her face to face why she's doing this to me. Sorry, Miss Celia doesn't want to see you. On what grounds won't she see me? We're still legally married. Soon we won't be. Attorney Marcus said coldly, if you refuse to accept this plan, we will immediately file a lawsuit in court. At that time, you will not only face property division but also the pursuit of huge debts. Additionally, we have sufficient evidence of your extramarital affair during marriage and causing someone to become pregnant. Who do you think the judge will favor? Jason's body swayed, and he plopped down into the chair. His legal advisor beside him also looked extremely ugly. He leaned close to Jason's ear and whispered, Mr. Chen, the situation is very unfavorable for us. This prenuptial agreement is almost flawless, and the other party has evidence of your infidelity. If we really go to court, our chances of winning are almost zero. Jason's heart sank bit by bit into the abyss. He knew his lawyer was telling the truth. He had lost utterly. He couldn't understand how the woman who had been by his side for 3 years, gentle and obedient, never daring to say two when he said one, had suddenly become so strange, so ruthless. She had laid out a 3-year trap, waiting for today to deliver the fatal blow. I need time to think. Jason's voice was hoarse and dry. Okay. Attorney Marcus nodded. I'll give you 3 days. After 3 days, I hope to get your clear reply. Otherwise, see you in court. Walking out of the law firm, the sunlight outside was so glaring it was hard to open one's eyes. Jason felt cold all over, as if falling into an ice cave. He returned to the company in a daze, and Vivian immediately came up. Brother Jason, how was it? Did sister-in-law agree to settle? Jason looked at her face full of concern and expectation, and a nameless fire surged up. If not for this woman, how would he have come to this point today? Get lost. He pushed Vivian away and walked straight into his office, slamming the door shut with a bang. Vivian staggered from the push, almost falling. She clutched her belly, her face drained of color, her eyes full of grievance and disbelief. In the office, Jason paced back and forth irritably. No, he couldn't just admit defeat like this. He absolutely couldn't give half the company to Celia. That was his blood and sweat, his everything. A flash of ruthlessness passed through his eyes. Since Celia was unkind, don't blame him for being unrighteous. He picked up his phone and dialed a number. Hey, Victor? It's Jason. That plan you mentioned last time, I agree. Let's cooperate, kick out the other shareholder from the company. Then, the whole company will be ours. Victor on the other end was one of his competitors, who had always wanted to acquire his company. Previously, Jason had never agreed. But now, he had no choice. Rather than dividing the company with Celia, it was better to bring in external help, first dilute Celia's 50% equity, so she wouldn't get a penny. As long as he could still control the company, he had a chance to turn things around. He didn't believe that Celia, a housewife who understood nothing, could outplay him in business. Jason's abacus was clicking loudly. Besides himself, his company had another small shareholder named Ethan. Ethan was his university classmate. When the company was established, Ethan invested some money, holding 20% of the shares. But over these years, Ethan had been very laid back, never participating in company management, just waiting for year-end dividends. In Jason's view, Ethan was a waste occupying a position without contributing. Kicking him out and replacing him with the powerful Victor would not only solve the current funding crisis but also leverage Victor's resources to take the company to the next level. Most importantly, as long as new capital was introduced for capital increase and share expansion, Celia's so-called 50% equity would be infinitely diluted, becoming worthless. Killing 3 birds with 1 stone, it was simply a perfect plan. The more Jason thought about it, the more excited he became, as if he could already see himself turning defeat into victory, stepping on Celia. He immediately took action, secretly signing a cooperation agreement with Victor. Victor's funds arrived quickly, relieving the company's urgent needs. Jason breathed a sigh of relief and began preparing for the shareholders' meeting to officially kick Ethan out. He also specifically hired a professional PR team to spread unfavorable rumors about Celia online. Abandoned woman from a wealthy family, greedy and insatiable, attempting to take all her husband's property. Deeply scheming, laying out for 3 years, just to get huge property in divorce. Former loving couple, now facing each other in court, the truth behind is shocking. Posts like these spread across major online platforms overnight. Although no names were mentioned, all the information pointed to Celia. Jason's purpose was clear. He wanted to ruin Celia's reputation, make her a rat crossing the street that everyone shouts to beat. He wanted everyone to know that it wasn't him, Jason, who was heartless, but Celia, this woman, who was too vicious. He even bribed some media, preparing for a live broadcast on the day of the shareholders' meeting, shaping him into a victim betrayed by his wife and forced into desperation. After doing all this, Jason felt he had regained control of the situation. He smugly called Attorney Marcus. Attorney Marcus, tell Celia that 3 days later, come to the company's shareholders' meeting. Doesn't she want company equity? I'll give her this opportunity. I just don't know if she'll have the face to come then. Attorney Marcus on the other end just said faintly, got it, and hung up. This calmness made Jason a bit unhappy. But he quickly threw that unhappiness behind him. Now, he just wanted to see Celia ruined and penniless. On the other side, at the family old residence, Celia was leisurely sitting in the garden drinking afternoon tea. The tablet beside her was playing those online news smearing her. Miss, do you want to handle these things? The butler stood aside, asking respectfully. No need. Celia put down the teacup, a cold smile curling at her lips. Let him make a fuss, the bigger the better. The higher he jumps, the harder he'll fall. She had long expected Jason to act desperately like a cornered dog. Just didn't expect his methods to be so low-level. Is everything arranged with Ethan? Everything is arranged. The butler replied, Mr. Ethan is loyal to you, he reports Jason's every move to us immediately. Celia nodded. Ethan, how could he be Jason's university classmate? He was actually a business talent cultivated by our family from childhood, a chess piece placed by Jason's side. When Jason started his business, Celia gave him the first sum of money in the name of dowry, and then had Ethan inject the second sum in the name of classmate investment, allowing Tingfei Technology to start smoothly. It can be said that without our family, there would be no Jason today. Unfortunately, Jason was blinded by success and had long forgotten his roots. He really thought he was the chosen one, building an empire by his own ability. It's truly pathetic and ridiculous. What about that Victor? Celia asked again. Also checked clearly. The butler handed over a document. His home-to group has been declining these years, with a very tight capital chain. This cooperation with Jason, he mortgaged most of his assets to loan from the bank. Once the cooperation fails, he will go bankrupt immediately. Celia flipped through the document and smiled. Very good. Then let him and Jason go to hell together. She stood up and stretched lazily. Has brother been informed? The master said he's already eager to watch this good show. Tell him, the good show is about to start. 3 days later, the shareholders' meeting was held as scheduled. The conference room of Tingfei Technology was full of people. Jason sat in the main seat, full of vigor, next to him his new ally, Victor. Ethan sat in the corner, his face looking somewhat ugly. Outside the conference room, reporters who had heard the news crowded, with long guns and short cannons, ready and waiting. Jason cleared his throat, facing the microphone, and began his emotional performance. He first recounted with deep sorrow how he started from scratch, founded the company, and how much blood and sweat he had put in. Then he turned the conversation, beginning to accuse his ex-wife of being greedy and insatiable, how after his career succeeded, she revealed her ugly face, attempting to take everything he had. Jason, ask myself, I haven't wronged her in the least. I gave her the most affluent life, so she didn't have to worry about livelihood. But her? How did she treat me? She stabbed me in the back with the most ruthless knife. He was in tears, his acting realistic, eliciting sympathetic expressions from many on site. The reporters' flashlights kept flashing. Today, I invited everyone here to make a clean break in front of everyone. Jason raised his volume, his face showing a determination to burn the boats. I announce that the company will undergo capital increase and share expansion. Victor from Hongtu Group will invest 100 million, becoming our Tingfei Technology's new major shareholder. At the same time, I propose to dismiss Mr. Ethan's shareholder status. He holds 20% of the company's shares but has never made any contribution to the company. Such a person doesn't deserve to stay in our company. As soon as his words fell, Victor took the lead in applauding. The other small shareholders bought by Jason also echoed. Ethan angrily turned red in the face, stood up pointing at Jason. Jason, you're burning bridges. I'm calling this cleaning house. Jason sneered. Ethan, roll out yourself, and you can save some face. Otherwise, don't blame me for not considering old feelings. Just when Jason thought he had victory in hand and was preparing for the vote, the conference room door was pushed open. A clear and cold female voice resounded through the room. Who gave you the power to clean my house? All eyes turned uniformly to the door. Celia, dressed in a sharp white suit skirt, hair tied up, with exquisite light makeup, stepped in high heels, walking in step by step. Behind her followed attorney Marcus and 2 bodyguards in black suits with cold expressions. At this moment, her aura was fully open, completely different from the housewife dependent on her husband in Jason's mouth. Jason's pupils contracted sharply. He didn't expect Celia to really dare to come. Moreover, in a posture he had never seen before. The reporters, like sharks smelling blood, instantly boiled, all lenses aimed at Celia. Miss Celia, what is your response to Mr. Jason's accusations? May I ask if you really divorced Mr. Jason for the property? Is your appearance today to salvage this marriage? Various sharp questions smashed towards Celia like cannonballs. But Celia ignored them as if unheard. Her gaze passed over everyone, landing straight on Jason's face. That look was cold, sharp, with a hint of mockery, and a hint of pity. Jason felt his scalp tingle under her gaze, subconsciously avoiding her eyes. Celia, what are you doing here? He shouted sternly but weakly. This is the company's shareholders' meeting. You're an outsider, not qualified to come in. Outsider? Celia laughed, but the smile didn't reach her eyes. Jason, have you forgotten that I hold 50% of your company's equity? By rights, I am the largest shareholder here. You. Jason was choked for a moment, then sneered, so what? I'm about to increase capital and expand shares. Your equity will soon become a pile of waste paper. I advise you to be sensible, take the little money I give you and get lost, don't humiliate yourself here. Is that so? Celia raised an eyebrow. Who told you that you have the power to decide on capital increase and share expansion? Of course I do. Jason slapped the table. I'm the founder and CEO of the company, I have the say. Oh? Celia pulled over a chair, sat down elegantly, crossing her legs. But as far as I know, the company's articles clearly state that any major resolution on equity changes must be approved by shareholders holding more than 2/3. I didn't agree, Mr. Ethan didn't agree, have you asked us? Jason's face stiffened. He indeed hadn't thought of this issue. He thought that as long as he handled Victor and kicked Ethan out, he would be the absolute controlling shareholder and could do as he pleased. Ethan won't be a shareholder soon, he said stubbornly. Once he's out, our 2 shares combined will exceed 2/3. Is that so? Celia's gaze turned to Ethan in the corner. Mr. Ethan, what do you think? Ethan, who had been looking ugly, suddenly stood up. The anger and unwillingness on his face swept away, replaced by a kind of respect. He bowed slightly to Celia. Young Mississippi. This young miss was like a thunderclap on flat ground, exploding the entire conference room into pin-drop silence. Everyone was stunned. Jason's eyes were about to bulge out. Ethan, what did you call her? Ethan ignored him and took out a document from his briefcase, handing it to Celia. Young miss, this is my equity holding agreement. The 20% shares under my name have actually always been your personal property. Celia took the document, without even looking, threw it on the table. That is to say, her gaze returned to Jason's face, saying word by word, I now hold 70% of the company's shares. Jason, tell me, on what grounds do you kick me out? Jason's brain was blank. 70%? Celia actually holds 70% of the shares? Ethan is her person? How is this possible? He felt his worldview completely collapse at this moment. He had always thought he was the hunter controlling the overall situation, but didn't expect that from beginning to end, he was just a prey in someone else's net. No, impossible, this must be a scam you conspired. He shook his head frantically, unable to accept this fact. Victor beside him also looked extremely ugly. He originally came to pick up a bargain, but unexpectedly stepped into such a big pit. If Celia really held 70% of the shares, then the $1 billion investment agreement he just signed was simply a joke. Victor, right? Celia's gaze finally landed on him. Victor's heart thumped, forcing a smile. Miss Celia. I don't care what agreement you reached with Jason. Celia's voice wasn't loud, but carried an undeniable oppressive force. Now, as the largest shareholder of the company, I formally announce that Tingfei Technology rejects all forms of capital increase and share expansion. Your so-called cooperation is invalid. Additionally, she looked at Attorney Marcus. Attorney Marcus, you can bring up the gift we prepared for Victor. Attorney Marcus nodded and handed a document to Victor. Victor took it puzzled, glanced at it, and was struck as if by lightning, trembling all over. It was a detailed investigation report on his company home to Group 4 tax evasion and financial fraud. Every entry, every item, was recorded clearly, with solid evidence. If this thing was exposed, not only would his company go bankrupt, but he would also face imprisonment. You. Victor pointed at Celia, his lips trembling, unable to say a word. Victor, in business, the most important thing is to keep your eyes open. Celia said faintly, some people are not for you to cooperate with. Now, take your things and get out of my company. Otherwise, I can't guarantee where this report will appear next second. Victor's cold sweat instantly soaked his back. How dare he hesitate for half a second? He grabbed the report and rushed out of the conference room tumbling, as if chased by evil ghosts. The reporters were all dumbfounded. This reversal came too fast and too stimulating. The previously spirited Mr. Chen and Victor, in the next second, one became a stray dog, the other a frightened bird. And the manipulator of all this was actually Celia, whom they depicted as an abandoned woman from a wealthy family. All lenses once again crazily aimed at Celia. What exactly is this woman's background? The conference room fell into dead silence. Those small shareholders who had just echoed Jason now lowered their heads, silent as cicadas in winter, wishing they could find a crack to crawl into. Jason slumped in his chair, his face ashen. He had lost. Lost completely, without any power to fight back. His proud schemes were like child's play in front of Celia, ridiculous. All his trump cards were easily overturned by the other party. He didn't even know how he lost. Celia didn't glance at him again. She stood up and walked to the main seat. The position that originally belonged to Jason. She surveyed the people in the conference room, her voice clear and powerful. From today on, I, Celia, will officially take over Tingfei Technology. All management positions in the company will undergo re-evaluation and appointment. Her gaze finally landed on Jason. As for Mr. Jason, given your vile character and low ability, you are no longer suitable for any position in the company. From now on, you are fired. Additionally, she paused, a cruel arc curling at her lips, don't forget, you still owe me 6,500,000. My lawyer will apply to the court for compulsory execution as soon as possible. I hope you have the ability to repay this debt. After saying that, she turned to Vivian beside her. Oh, no, now she should be called Miss Vivian. From the moment Celia appeared, Vivian had been hiding in the corner, trying to reduce her presence. She never imagined that the sister-in-law who was docile and incompetent in her eyes, easily manipulable, would be such a great figure. She felt like a clown, presumptuously showing off in front of the real queen. Miss Vivian. Celia's voice made her tremble all over. She raised her head, meeting Celia's cold eyes, scared to the point her legs went soft. Sister-in-law, President Celia. I remember, you're the company's finance? Yes, yes. Very good. Celia nodded. Attorney Marcus, bring out the other gift we prepared for Miss Vivian. Attorney Marcus took out another document from his briefcase again. Vivian looked at that document, an ominous premonition stronger than Victor's just now instantly enveloped her. This is, what? She asked tremblingly. See for yourself. Vivian took the document with shaking hands. It was a detailed evidence of her using her position to embezzle company funds and falsify accounts. The destination of every sum was investigated clearly. Most were used to buy luxury goods, and transferred to her parents and brother in the countryside. The total amount was as high as 3 million. No, this isn't real, this is forged. Vivian screamed, tearing the document to shreds. I didn't take the company's money. Whether you did or not isn't up to you. Celia's voice was like a judgment from hell. The company's surveillance, the bank's records, won't lie. Embezzling 3 million public funds, a huge amount, is enough to let you reflect in prison for 10 or 8 years. 10 or 8 years. Vivian's vision darkened, almost fainting. Her life was completely over. She originally thought that by climbing Jason this high branch, she could fly up and become a phoenix. Unexpectedly, this wasn't a high branch at all, but a huge trap. She and Jason were just ants casually toyed within Celia's palms. Security. Celia said faintly. The 2 bodyguards immediately stepped forward, one on each side, holding up the limp Vivian. Take her to where she should go. Yes, young Mississippi. No. Don't. I was wrong. President Celia, I really was wrong. Please spare me. I still have your child in my belly. Vivian finally collapsed, crying and begging for mercy. She wanted to use the child as her last bet. Celia's steps paused. She turned around, walked to Vivian, squatted down, and looked her in the eye. My child? She laughed, laughing with utmost irony. Aren't you mistaken about something? The father of my child will only be a dragon among men, a favored son of heaven. And this one in your belly, his father is about to become a debt-ridden, penniless pauper. Do you think he deserves it? Vivian's crying stopped abruptly. She stared blankly at Celia, as if seeing this woman for the first time. So, from beginning to end, Celia never took Jason seriously. Her so-called love, so-called marriage, in Celia's view, was perhaps just a boring game. And now, the game was over. Celia stood up, no longer glancing at her. Take her away. No. Celia. You vicious woman. You'll die a horrible death. Vivian's cursing voice grew fainter until it disappeared outside the door. The conference room returned to dead silence once again. Jason sat there dazed, like a puppet with its soul extracted. Vicious woman? Yes, Celia was indeed vicious. But what about himself? He betrayed the marriage, forced his wife for a mistress, even went so far as to ruin her reputation, wanting her to leave with nothing. What kind of good person was he? He was just inferior in skill, losing to this woman who was more ruthless and resourceful than him. He lost, convinced. No, he wasn't convinced. He still had one last card. He suddenly stood up, rushed in front of Celia, his eyes bloodshot. Celia. You can't do this to me. Have you forgotten the feelings between us? Have you forgotten what you said back then? You said you loved me, you said you would be with me forever. And our child, Leo. He's only 3 years old. Do you have the heart to let him have no father? Do you have the heart to let him live in a broken family? He tried to use past affections, use the child, to awaken Celia's last bit of pity. However, Celia just looked at him coldly, like looking at a stranger. Feelings? From the moment you appeared in front of me with that woman and the divorce agreement, between us, there's only the ledger left. As for Leo, she paused, a true coldness flashing in her eyes. Don't worry, he will have the best father in the world. But that person will absolutely not be you. You simply don't deserve to be his father. Jason was pierced by Celia's words, utterly devastated. His last hope was also shattered. Looking at this familiar yet strange woman in front of him, a towering hatred and unwillingness surged in his heart. Celia, why? Why on earth are you doing this to me? He roared, since you have such a big background, what can't you have? Why did you have to provoke me, give me hope, and then destroy it with your own hands? Is playing with me fun? He felt he was the biggest clown in the world. Everything he had struggled for half his life, proud of, was just a joke in Celia's eyes. Celia looked at his nearly mad appearance, finally showing a trace of emotion. It was a kind of pity after seeing through all the truth. Jason, do you really want to know why? Her voice was very light, very light. Jason was stunned, staring blankly at her. Because I once truly loved you. A complex emotion flashed in Celia's eyes. There was nostalgia, disappointment, and resolution. When I met you, you were still a penniless poor kid. But you had talent, ambition, drive. You would queue for hours in the winter night just to buy me a baked sweet potato I loved. When I was sick, you would stay by my side without leaving, telling me lame jokes. Back then, your eyes had light. I thought I had found someone to entrust my life to. So I was willing to give up everything for you, accompany you from zero. Jason listened to Celia's words, involuntarily recalling the past. Those days squeezed in the rental room, though impoverished, were full of hope and warmth. Back then, they truly loved each other. His heart involuntarily softened. Celia, But you changed. Celia interrupted him. When did the change start? From when the company got on track? Or from when you first received millions in dividends? You started becoming busier and busier, coming home later and later. You started disdaining the meals I cooked as not refined enough, disdaining the clothes I wore as not high-class enough. You started lingering in various places of pleasure, surrounded by all kinds of women. You forgot the initial promises, forgot the days we suffered together. In your eyes, there was no longer me, only money, power, and desire. Jason, ask yourself, in these 3 years, have you really treated me as your wife? Have you cared about me? Do you know what I like, what I hate? Do you know what our son Leo's favorite toy is, what he's most afraid of? Celia's series of questions were like sharp knives, ruthlessly stabbing into Jason's heart. He opened his mouth but couldn't say a word. Because he really didn't know. He couldn't even remember when was the last time he took his son to the amusement park. So, it's not me playing you, it's you yourself who personally destroyed everything between us. The last trace of warmth in Celia's eyes disappeared, leaving only cold resolution. I gave you chances. When you first didn't come home at night, when you first had rumors with other women, I subtly reminded you. I thought you would restrain yourself, turn back. But I was wrong. You took my tolerance as my weakness. You took my concessions as your capital. Until you appeared in front of me with Vivian. At that moment, I completely gave up. A man can stop loving, but can't lack a bottom line. And you, Jason, you no longer have a bottom line. Celia's words were like a basin of ice water, drenching Jason from head to toe, chilling him to the bone. He finally understood. It wasn't Celia who changed, it was him. It was he who step by step pushed that girl who once had eyes only for him into the abyss, and also pushed himself to a dead end. So, all this was planned by you long ago? He asked hoarsely. No. Celia shook her head. I never thought to end our relationship in this way. My original plan was, after you completely controlled the company and stood firm, to confess everything to you, then our family could live well together. I even thought that if one day you got tired of the business world's deceit, we could hand the company to professional managers and go travel the world. But you didn't give me that opportunity. A poignant smile appeared on Celia's face. Jason, do you know? Tingfei technology, from the beginning, was a gift I gave you. You thought that 5 million startup fund was your entire fortune. Actually, it was just a small part one casually took from the pocket money my father gave me. You thought Ethan was your classmate, but actually, he is one of my father's most capable subordinates, sent to assist and protect you. You thought those big projects you won were by your ability and luck. Actually, behind every project, there was our family's shadow. It was my father paving the way for you. Everything you're proud of, your company, your achievements, your career, in the end, it's just a stage our family built for you. If we want you up, you can go up. If we want you down, you have to roll down anytime. You are just a self-righteous man-eating flower raised in our family's greenhouse. These words were more painful to Jason than any torture. They completely destroyed his last dignity and pride as a man. He had always thought he was a favored son of heaven, building this empire with his own hands. In the end, he was just a pretty boy kept by a rich girl, a worm living in lies woven by others without knowing. Ah! Jason let out a beast-like roar, eyes bloodshot, lunging fiercely at Celia. He lost his reason, he just wanted to destroy this woman in front of him, destroy this demon who toyed with him in her palms. However, before he touched Celia's clothes, he was firmly pressed to the ground by the two bodyguards. He struggled madly on the ground like a mad dog, roaring, but to no avail. Celia looked at him indifferently, as if looking at a stranger unrelated to her. Take him to where he should go to. She instructed faintly. Yes, young Mississippi. Jason was dragged out, his desperate and venomous roars echoing in the empty conference room, lingering for a long time. Celia stood in place, motionless. After a long while, she slowly closed her eyes. A clear tear slid from the corner of her eye. Goodbye, Jason. Goodbye, my dead, foolish love. After dealing with Jason and Vivian, Celia didn't leave immediately. She sat back in the main seat, her gaze sweeping over the remaining small shareholders in the conference room. Those people lowered their heads one by one, their bodies slightly trembling, not daring to breathe loudly. They had just stood on Jason's side, echoing to kick Ethan out. Now the tables have turned, how would the new boss deal with them? Everyone's heart was in their throat. Everyone. Celia finally spoke, her voice not loud, but clearly reaching everyone's ears. You must have seen what happened just now. I don't care what reasons you had before to choose Jason's side. I'll give you one chance. She paused, her sharp gaze sweeping over each person's face one by one. Now, you can choose, take your shares and get out immediately. Or stay and continue to work for the company. I'll say the ugly words up front. If you choose to get out, I'll acquire your shares at market price, and we part on good terms. If you choose to stay, from now on you must completely obey my instructions. If I find anyone making small moves behind my back, biting the hand that feeds. Her voice suddenly turned cold. Then, the fate of Jason and Vivian will be your example. As soon as these words came out, everyone present felt a chill down their back. They had no doubt that this young and beautiful woman absolutely had the ability to do what she said. For a moment, the conference room was so quiet you could hear a pin drop. Everyone fell into a difficult choice. Getting out meant immediately getting a considerable sum of cash, but also completely severing ties with Tingfei Technology. Although Tingfei Technology was now experiencing turmoil, anyone with eyes could see that with our family, this behemoth backing it, the future development was limitless. Withdrawing now was tantamount to giving up a gold mine. But if staying, it meant working under such a strong, ruthless woman. A slight mistake could lead to eternal doom. After a long time, finally one person stood up tremblingly. President Celia, I'm old, lacking energy, want to go home and retire. I'm willing to sell my shares. Celia glanced at him and nodded. Okay. Ethan, note it down, after the meeting, find attorney Marcus to handle the procedures. Yes, young Mississippi. With the first, there was the second, the third. Soon, 2 or 3 more chose to withdraw. They were all veterans who started the business with Jason. Knowing their close relationship with Jason, Celia couldn't trust them anymore, so they simply took the money and left, preserving themselves wisely. Celia didn't make it difficult for them, agreeing one by one. Finally, 3 people remained in the conference room. They glanced at each other, and finally, the youngest one mustered courage and stood up. President Celia, we are willing to stay. His voice was still trembling due to nervousness. We believe that under your leadership, the company will definitely develop better. We are willing to serve you like dogs and horses. Celia looked at him, finally showing a hint of smile on her face. Very good. You made a wise choice. She stood up. From today, you 3 are members of the company's newly established decision committee. The company's daily operations will be jointly responsible by you. Ethan will serve as the chairman of the committee. Your salaries and dividends will be doubled on the original basis. Upon hearing this, the 3 were both surprised and delighted. They originally thought Celia would take the opportunity to suppress them, but unexpectedly, not only did she not, she entrusted them with important tasks and gave them raises. This was simply pie falling from the sky. Thank you, President Celia. Thank you, President Celia. We will definitely devote ourselves fully, until death. The 3 were excited and incoherent, repeatedly expressing loyalty. Celia nodded satisfactorily. Give a stick, then a carrot. Combining kindness and power is always the most effective way to win hearts. What she wanted was not a dictatorship, but an efficient team absolutely loyal to her. All right, today's meeting ends here. Celia waved her hand. From tomorrow, I don't want to see anything related to Jason in the company. Change the company's name too. Call it Ching Tian Technology. Yes. Everyone responded in unison. After handling the company matters, Celia returned to the family old residence. As soon as she entered, she saw her father, Bernard, the chairman of the Sioux group, sitting on the living room sofa, leisurely sipping tea. Back? Bernard put down the teacup, looking at her with a smile. Dad. Celia walked over and sat beside him. All handled cleanly? Yes. What about that Jason? Sent to where he should go. Bernard nodded, showing a satisfied expression on his face. I told you long ago that Jason is no good, but you wouldn't listen. You had to hit the wall yourself. His tone carried a hint of reproach, but more of heartache. Now you know it hurts? Celia leaned on her father's shoulder, like a wrong child. Dad, I was wrong. Knowing you were wrong is good. Bernard patted her hand. Learn from mistakes. Our family's daughter can be crazy for love, but must not be trapped by emotions. If you fall, just get up. What about that little guy? He changed the topic and asked. Leo is sleeping upstairs, the nanny is watching. Bernard pondered for a moment. What are your plans next? I want to personally take over Tion Technology. Celia said. This was a decision she had thought about for a long time. Before, she treated the company as a gift to Jason, a symbol of their love. Now, she wanted to make it her own career. Thought it through? Yes. Celia's eyes became firm. Dad, brother, you've paved too many roads for me already. The remaining road, I want to walk myself. Bernard looked at the light reigniting in his daughter's eyes and smiled gratified. Good. Worthy of being my Bernard's daughter. Ambitious. He stood up, walked to the bookshelf, took out an ancient wooden box from a hidden compartment. This, I originally wanted to give you as dowry when you married. Now it seems it's time to hand it to you. He handed the wooden box to Celia. Celia opened it puzzled. Inside lay quietly not gold or silver jewelry, but a seemingly ordinary jade seal. At the bottom of the seal were engraved two ancient seal characters, Tian Shu. This is. Celia picked up the seal, feeling warm and smooth, yet heavy as 1,000 pounds. This is the true core of our family. Bernard's voice carried a hint of gravity. Our family, on the surface, is a legitimate business group. But in reality, our true foundation is the Tian Shu intelligence network spread across the globe. Tian Shu? Celia's heart jumped fiercely. She had heard this name. In the business world, it was a legendary existence. It was said that Tian Shu controlled the world's top intelligence resources, from national secrets to wealthy privacy, knowing everything. Countless people wanted to find it, win it over, but all failed. No one knew where Tian Shu's headquarters was, nor who its controller was. She never imagined this mysterious organization was her family's industry. Tian Shu is jointly managed by 7 seals, corresponding to the Big Dipper's 7 stars, Tian Shu, Tian Xian, Tian Ji, Tian Quan, Yu Heng, Kai Yang, Yao Guang. Bernard explained. The one in my hand is the main seal Tian Shu. The one in your brother's hand is Yao Guang. The remaining 5 are held by our family's 5 most loyal branches. This Tian Quan seal was originally prepared for your future husband. Since that Jason kid doesn't deserve it, now it belongs to you. Bernard solemnly handed the seal engraved with Tian Quan to Celia. From today, you are the holder of Tian Quan. You can mobilize 30% of Tian Shu's intelligence resources and operational forces in the Asian region. Dad, this is too precious. Celia felt her hands trembling. She knew this small seal represented immense power and wealth. Take it. Bernard's tone allowed no refusal. This is what you deserve. It's also our family's compensation to you. Remember, our family members will never be bullied by anyone. Whoever dares to touch a hair on you will pay 100-fold, 1,000-fold price. Celia tightly gripped the seal, a warm current surging through her body. This is family. No matter how high you fly, how far you go, they are always your strongest backing. 1 month later. Tian Technology, under Celia's iron-fisted rectification, was renewed. The company's business was booming, stock prices soaring, market value tripled compared to when Jason was there. The name Celia became a rising star in the business world, a legend. Everyone knew this young and beautiful female president not only had thunderous methods but also an unfathomable background. No one dared to underestimate her anymore, nor provoke her. That day, Celia had just finished a meeting and returned to her office. The secretary knocked and came in. President Celia, there's a Mr. Jason downstairs who says he wants to see you. He has no appointment. Celia's hand reading the document paused. Jason. She knew who it was. Calculating the time, he should be out by now. Let him come up. Yes. A few minutes later, the office door was pushed open. Jason walked in. He was thinner, more haggard, looking like he had aged 10 years. The suit on him was wrinkled, no longer having the former glamour. That 1 month of imprisonment and the huge debt of $6,500,000 had completely crushed this once arrogant man. What do you want with me? Celia didn't look up, her voice cold. Jason stood in front of the desk, fidgety and uneasy, like a child who had done wrong. Looking at this radiant woman in front of him, he felt incredibly strange and distant. He couldn't even believe that this queen ruling a business empire was once the wife who moaned under him, cooking for him. I'm here, to apologize to you. He mustered courage, speaking with difficulty. Celia, I know I was wrong. I really know I was wrong. I shouldn't have betrayed you, shouldn't have hurt you. Give me another chance, okay? He knelt down with a thud. Let's remarry. I swear, from now on I'll treat you well, treat Leo well. I'll listen to everything you say, be your ox and horse. He cried bitterly, humble to the dust. He thought that as long as he lowered his posture, as long as he was sincere enough, Celia would soften. After all, she once loved him so much. However, Celia just put down the document in her hand, raised her head, and looked at him quietly. That look had no anger, no mockery, not even hate. Only a dead silence. Jason, have you forgotten, we're already divorced. We can remarry. The law allows it. But I don't allow it. Celia stood up, walked in front of him, looking down at him. Do you know? Seeing you now, I only feel disgusted. What I regret most isn't falling in love with you, but after discovering your garbage, not throwing you away immediately. Instead, letting you linger in my life for so long. Chances? I gave you countless. It was you who threw them into the trash one by one. Now, you have nothing, so you want to come back to me? What do you take me for? A recycling station? Every word of Celia's was like a knife, slowly torturing Jason's heart. All his hopes, all his fantasies, were shattered at this moment. He finally understood, he could never go back. He had lost this woman forever. As for Leo, Celia's voice was cold as ice, he's doing well now. He has a new father, a man 10,000 times better than you. He will give him the fatherly love and role model you could never provide. So, put away your pitiful posture and disappear completely from my world. In the future, don't appear in front of me and my son again. Otherwise, I can't guarantee you'll be able to stand here intact like now. Celia's words were like the final judgment, nailing Jason to the pillar of shame. He slumped on the ground, face ashen, unable to say another word. New father? A man 10,000 times better than him? So, she had long found a replacement for herself and her son. So, from beginning to end, he was just a dispensable passerby. His thought-deep affection and repentance was just a nauseating performance in the other's eyes. Security. Celia pressed the intercom on the desk. Soon, 2 security guards rushed in. Please escort this gentleman out. In the future, without my permission, don't let him step into this building again. Yes, President Celia. Jason was dragged out like a dead dog. He didn't resist, nor beg anymore. Because he knew everything was over. His life had come to a complete end the moment he decided to betray Celia. The office returned to quiet. Celia walked to the huge floor-to-ceiling window, overlooking the bustling city below. Bustling traffic, people coming and going. Everyone was hustling for their desires and goals. She once was just an ordinary woman among the masses, longing for love and family. It was Jason's betrayal that made her grow up overnight. It was the family's power that let her be reborn from the fire. She didn't thank the suffering, she only thanked herself who didn't give up in despair. The phone vibrated gently. It was a message from her brother Adrian. All resolved? A faint smile curled at Celia's lips. She replied, yes. Soon, Adrian's call came. Bring Leo home for dinner tonight, Dad stewed your favorite black chicken soup. Okay. By the way, Adrian's tone suddenly became gossipy, that Wall Street financial tycoon I mentioned last time, Mr. Lee, what do you think? He's been thinking about you, asking me about you every day. In Celia's mind emerged a handsome and elegant figure with a warm smile. It was a man she met some time ago at a business cocktail party. Mature, steady, capable, his gaze at her full of appreciation and respect. Unlike Jason, who only had possession and desire. We'll see. Celia neither agreed nor refused. Her life couldn't have only one Jason. She was still young, with infinite possibilities in the future. She had family who loved her, a cute son, a successful career. She possessed the whole world. She no longer needed a man's love to prove her value. After hanging up, she picked up her coat and walked out of the office. The sunset's afterglow, through the glass, sprinkled on her, plating her with a layer of golden halo. She stepped in high heels, her pace firm and composed. Behind her was the empire she built with her own hands. In front was hers, a brand new, vast clear sky. The elevator door opened, and she walked in. Looking at herself in the mirror, radiant and with firm eyes, Celia's mouth raised a confident and composed smile. Everything in the past was already passing clouds. Celia's, life was just beginning. Her brilliance would never end.